So guess what? Donald Trump gave a speech in Detroit. He's trying to get his campaign, trying to reboot, get back on track. So guess what he did? He read off a teleprompter, the whole speech. Listen to it. Remember, that was his whole thing? He doesn't read off teleprompter. He's not one of those politicians. Brr. Here it comes. Here's a little bit of it right here.
There will be no change under Hillary Clinton. Only 4 more years of weakness and President Obama.
That's him reading off a teleprompter. Here, want to hear some more? Only 4 more years of weakness and President Obama. He doesn't talk like that. He's reading. It's funny to watch him read. Here's some more of him reading. Here we go.
Policies produced 1.2% growth, the weakest so-called recovery since the Great Depression. It's been written about all over. It's a disaster. And
That's his impromptu line. You saw that? It's been written about all over. It's a disaster. That's his improv. His improv is either many people say it, everybody knows, and it's a disaster. Or it's phenomenal. Like, these are the only things he knows how to say, right? So he's like trying to speak in his own voice there for a second. You see, he comes back and all he has is those stupid, trite, overused expressions that he uses. Okay, so here we go.
Of the national debt during the Obama years, there are now 94.3 million Americans outside of the labor force. Home ownership is at.
By the way, this is the new right-wing talking points, because the economy, by most metrics that we use, has been doing well. The stock market has gone back to where it was. I'm talking about after the big economic collapse that George Bush handed off to Barack Obama. So things have come back. Corporate profits are up. Wall Street's back. Unemployment is down. And so the right wing has come up with all these new stats that are very confused, not confusing, but they're not confusing in a sense, but they are meant to confuse, right? So they're there to make you not clear on what's happening. So let's take it from the top again. Let's listen, and we'll go through it again.
Policies produced 1.2% growth, the weakest so-called recovery since the Great Depression. It's been written about all over. It's a disaster. And a doubling of the national debt.
So they say that a doubling of the national debt. But that's because he was handed such an unbelievable deficit, right? So Barack Obama has actually cut the deficit that he was handed by George Bush in half. Now, you have to know the difference between the debt and a deficit. A deficit is the money on a yearly basis that you're in the red. A debt is the overall money that you're in the red, that you owe, right? So deficit is a yearly, and debt is the overall, okay? So, of course, you can't cut. First, you have to cut the deficit, which is what So you're going to keep adding to the debt because you have this huge deficit. So Barack Obama actually did cut the deficit in half, or it has happened underneath his presidency or during. So, but they don't so that's one of those sneaky things. Oh, look, he doubled the debt. He didn't double the debt. Yes, the debt doubled, but that's because he inherited a huge deficit, which he has halved. Okay, so there we go.
During the Obama years, there are now 94.3 million Americans outside of the labor force.
So that's that. You hear that. What is that? First of all, it's funny to watch him read stuff like that, right? He's reading his attack lines. It's kind of sad in a sense, but obviously it's hilarious because Donald Trump is full of it. So what that means, that number of, the 90 whatever million people outside the workforce. So that's another number that the right wing is now touting, is all the people who aren't in the work. That's the highest number ever. I heard a right winger on the local right wing talk radio here the other day saying the same thing. You can see why people are upset. There's some 90 million people in America don't work. Yeah, I'm gonna say, I don't know. Half of those are stay-at-home moms, students, the elderly, retired people, and the infirmed. You think that makes up at least 90 people? Stay-at-home moms, students, kids too young, the elderly, the retired and the infirmed. I would think that that might make up 90 million people in America. But that's this number. They go, oh, my God, these people aren't working. No wonder white males are mad. And a lot of people did drop out of the labor force when Obama passed Obamacare, because a lot of people were just hanging on to crappy jobs that they hated and didn't need the money from so they could keep the health insurance, because you couldn't get health insurance if you had you know the whole deal. And so now people don't have to stay in jobs that they hated. They are freed from that so they can go do other things that they want to do. Some of them don't want to do anything, because now they can buy health care. That's probably a lot of people's second and third jobs anyway. So that's that BS number. That's a BS number. Oh, the labor participation rate. It's something you never heard about before because it's meaningless. And it's just made up because all the other numbers that they normally quote are looking good. Not that I think this economic recovery that Barack Obama is taking credit for, that has happened, Barack, not that it hasn't really been felt by working people. Right? So there's about a half of the country that's really treading water, really hurting right now, which is why they're willing to not vote for Hillary Clinton, because you can't scare them anymore, right? So it's not that white privilege. It's actually people who are hurting. So, okay, so let's keep going.
Home ownership is at its lowest rate in 51 years. Nearly 12 million people have been added to the food stamp, and these people are growing, and it's growing so rapidly since President Obama took office.
Did you see his little improv there? And this number is growing, and it's growing so rapidly. Back to the script, since Obama took office. It's funny to watch him. It's funny to watch him read. And yes, you know, during horrible economic times, turns out people need assistance from the government. Yeah. You know how like the banks took $80 billion a month for years and years during the economic calamity that happened that was engineered by them? You remember how, yeah, so when there's a downturn and you have to deficit spend, and that's what FDR did. That's what people aren't being allowed to do in Europe anymore. So that's the problem, right? So when you go into a depression, you deficit spend. That spurs the economy. Demand. We've talked about this on the show. You put money in the pockets of working people. That's what FDR did. That's what actually gets an economy going. Not what we've been doing since Reagan, which is supply side economics, which is you take money from the working class and you give it to rich people and corporations. So they've shifted the tax burden onto workers and poor people, and have taken it off of corporations and rich people. So it's the opposite of how to build a good economy, right? So, okay.
We have the lowest labor force participation rates.
So that's just basically he's doubling up on that thing I talked about. The 92 million people who aren't working, that's that lowest participation. So he's just saying that same thing twice in a different way.
1 in 5 American households do not have a single member in the labor force, not a single member of a household.
So that's the whole thing of there's all these moochers in America. Again, it's the people in America are moochers. That's a problem. Not the problem. The problem isn't that all the money is being hoarded at the top by the 1%. It's not. That's not the problem. The problem is that the problem isn't that 50% of all wage earners earn less than $30,000 in America. That the income inequality is greater than that even at the Gilded Age. That's not. No. It's that people are moochers and lazy. That's the right wing thing, and that's that. Oh, it gets white guys so angry. Oh, I'm so angry at the people poorer than me. See how stupid that sounds? Oh, those fat cats at the bottom. So angry. That's the brilliant trick of the right wing, to get people angry at people with no money and no power. And that's that. What? At 5 households, no one even works. So that number of 1 in 5 households don't have a single member in the labor force. 1 in 5. That's 20% of households. Do you know what percent of people in the United States are over 65, retirement age? 13%. He's saying 20% of households don't have anyone in the working. 13% of American, they're retirement age. And the rest of it, and the unemployment rate is at somewhere around 5-6%. So that's pretty close to your 1 in 5. So he's trying again. It's this It's this, you throw out a stat that sounds unbelievably huge. 1 in 5 households doesn't have anybody even working. Like, oh, we're taking care of all these poor moochers, these bloodsuckers who don't want to work. I'm so sick of taking care of these welfare rats in America. Again, it's just, again, there's lies, damn lies, and there's statistics. And here he is using statistics to mislead you, to misinform you, to, again, rile you up and get you angry at people lower on the economic ladder than you. That's what this is. You know what your problem is? Poor people. That's what this is. 1 in 5 households doesn't have anybody working. And the implication is you're taking care of them. You're paying for these lazy moochers. Well, 13% of the goddamn country is over 65 years old. And the unemployment rate is at 5 or 6%. That's almost your whole stat right there. Jag off. That's your whole stat. Okay, here we go.
These are the real unemployment numbers.
Yeah, that's the real unemployment numbers. They're all, again, they're not scary. They don't say anything. They're all made up. They're not made up. They're all manipulated to sound like something they aren't.
The 5% figure is one of the biggest hoaxes in American modern politics.
You know what the other big hoax is that they say? The biggest hoax is the unemployment number. You know, because Barack Obama got it down. That's why now you can't trust the numbers that they're good. You know what they say the other big hoax is? Science. That's these people. That's the Republicans. That's the right wing. Science is a hoax. And so are our economic numbers. They're all a hoax. They're none of them. Don't trust anybody. Don't believe anything. They've been saying that now for going on 20, 30 years. A anti-intellectual propaganda push by the right wing, at least since I can remember. Since Reagan, for sure. And this is the result. Okay, let's see if he has anything else. No, that's it. So here's basically his economic plan. Tax cuts for rich people, tax cuts for the corporations, tax cuts for really rich people. And then look at this, fully deductible child care, but he wants to get rid of your health care. That's hilarious. Repeal the Affordable Care Act. Oh, that's great. But with nothing to replace it. And then renegotiate trade deals. These are very vague. Again, it's the standard boilerplate right-wing bullshit. Hey, we're going to cut taxes. We're going to have a top income tax rate of 33. That's not the problem. Isn't rich people paying too much taxes? That's not the problem in America. The problem isn't that rich people don't have enough money. That's not the problem. The problem is the economy is rigged, and no matter how hard you work, you can never get your fair share of it. And now Barack Obama is pushing the TPP deal, which is more of that, which is more money and power to the rich and powerful and less of it for everybody else. And Donald Trump has no plan. This is no ideas. None. This is it. This is all standard right-wing boilerplate bullshit, except for fully tax-deductible child care. You know what I think that really is probably? That's his vouchers. Oh, you can take this to a private place instead of going to a kindergarten, or you can take this anyway. And you know it's nothing really to help people. So there you go. There's Trump reading off a teleprompter. He's reading off talking points that are 100% bullshit.